are she, her, hers, and I'm a rising senior. That's crazy. And I'm the president of MTR. I'm really grateful for all of you joining us here today in this conversation on how MTR can move forward. I think in light of this racial pandemic we're living in, it's overdue that MTR begins to live by its mission statement, innovative musical theater for students by students. So as we said in our statement on Instagram, we're recommitting ourselves to our motto, and we plan to take steps through infrastructural changes, like decentering the board and making it more of a producing body. We're going to commit to color conscious casting, make MTR more accessible for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And we're also going to be reevaluating board apps and requirements and implementing transparency to ensure that artists of color not only feel welcome at MTR, but also feel like we all belong. But for this change to happen, we want to hear from you. And so today's conversation is going to be a space for anyone who wishes to speak on our proposed areas of change, whether that be sharing past experiences, providing input or suggestions, or asking questions about how we plan to move forward. So the board is here today solely to listen to you guys and answer questions, any questions that you may have to the best of our ability. And this conversation is being recorded right now so that we can utilize today as a guideline for the change that we want to implement. We're also planning on uploading this recording for accountability reasons, and also just so those who aren't present here today can look at this. So as long as everyone's okay with that, and if you aren't comfortable with that, just let us know. So now the current board is going to introduce themselves by their year, pronouns, and role on the board.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a rising junior, and pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the secretary.
Hi, I'm Cole. I'm a rising junior. I use pronouns he, him, his, and I'm a member at large.
Hi there, I'm Steven. I'm a rising junior. I go by he, him, is, and I am one of the music directors on the board / member at large.
I'm Austin. I'm a rising senior. I am the treasurer of the board. Yeah. He, him, his.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a rising junior. I'm a member at large. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm a rising junior. I'm a member at large, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hi, I'm Erica. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a member at large on the board, and I'm a rising sophomore.
And hi, it's me, Tata, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a rising senior on the board. We have a few board members who are not here today given to other commitments and jobs, but they'll definitely be watching this after it's over. So yeah, I'll be moderating today's fun conversation. But before we start to hear your input, I thought I would share my own personal experience with MTR just to get the ball rolling, being a person of color and having gotten on the board and how it feels to be on the board. Yeah, so I've been on this board for a year now, and honestly, it was quite a journey to get here. I applied three times, which kind of feels crazy because the explanations behind why I didn't get on the first two times were not incredibly clear or transparent, and it honestly didn't make a lot of sense to me. And the third time that I applied, I only applied because I knew that there needed to be more people of color on the board and because I knew the women of color on the board. And basically, it's pretty messed up that prior to this, and hopefully with the change to come, this will never happen again, but it felt like you had to know someone to be a member of the board or to work with MTR and to be in this, like, it felt very elitist, and it felt like it wasn't a safe space and a place for students to get opportunities to learn and to grow. And that's not fair, and it's not okay. And we're hopefully, with the input that you guys give us today, we'll be able to make changes so that people don't feel like I felt and how other people have felt in the past. So yeah, if you guys want to speak or say anything, please raise your hand, and then I'll call out your name and you can go for it, say what you have to say. And yeah, this is just a discussion on however you feel like you can help or share your past experiences. And I ask that we let everyone speak for their full time and not interrupt. And also there's the chat if you don't want to like outwardly speak. So yeah, If you like, raise your hand with the little, yes, Zoya.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So hi, I'm pretty sure everyone knows who I am already, but if you don't, my name is Zoya. I'm also a rising junior. So I don't really know how to phrase all of this. I've worked on spelling bee and dogfight with MTR, and spelling bee was fine. I had a great time. MTR was great. Cast was great. It was awesome. Dogfight, however, was a very different experience. I'm sure most people on the board already know about my experience on Dogfight. I think the problems that I saw from my end, I really don't know what else happened, because the scenic postmortem that we had, as I'm sure people on the board also already know, wasn't really that productive. But how I felt personally was that I wasn't being heard, and other people's opinions were like above mine, and I couldn't tell why. Like there was no like hierarchy or any authority that was given to us, and like there was no contingency plan for anything. And when I brought up those concerns to Jordan, he said, and I said I felt like I wasn't being heard. He said that he couldn't physically hear what I was saying. And I thought that was a little ridiculous, because he said he had a medical condition that meant he couldn't hear me when I mumbled. And I'll be a little transparent, I also have the same issue. I have the same medical issue that he does. I could hear everything that he was saying. So I felt like my concerns were not being brought up. And a lot of people that were aware of the situation were very sympathetic, but there was pretty much nothing anybody could do, especially because a lot of those things happened like within like the weeks leading up to the performance. Like it was kind of crunch time. We didn't really have time to like break anything down and try to go about it in a better way. But I think there was a communication issue. I feel like there shouldn't be overlapping roles in a show in case something like Jordan getting sick for 3 of the like crucial days of Dogfight happens again. So there was that whole experience. And then I'll also be transparent. I also applied to be on MTR 3 times for pretty much the same reasons as Tata, and because I knew a lot of the seniors on MTR were graduating, and I'm a set design major, and I'm a woman of color. So, and I applied 3 times, and each of the times I got feedback, and I thought I improved pretty much every time. I got an interview the second time, and then I didn't get an interview the third time, and I didn't really know why. And I felt like the explanations for that weren't really like concrete, like this is how you can like do better. It was just like they didn't need that kind of position right now. Maybe try again next time, which is what I heard the first 2 times. So yeah, sorry, that was a little word vomity, but that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much for sharing, Zoya. And yeah, I'm sorry that you felt like that. And hopefully moving forward with all the transparent, like our focus on trying to be transparent and reassessing our board application process, we will figure out a way to make it clear. Because I think that something that we've talked about that we didn't put in the statement necessarily, but something that us as a board have discussed was the fact that people, this doesn't necessarily like relate to your specific situation, but this is something that other people might have experienced when applying multiple times, is like the fact that we ask people to give us a resume, and how having people apply and like basing their whether or not they come in with a resume isn't like the best factor, because oftentimes you might have gone to a high school or not have had opportunities prior, and MTR should be a space for growing and learning and exploring. And so on top of like the lack of concrete reasons why, that's also something that we're going to try to look into. So just another tidbit. But thank you again, Zoya. Rebecca.
Hello. Okay, so on a similar note, I applied to MTR 3 times, but I think on like the contrary, I did get good feedback and I got like good responses and I understood like what the board was looking for. So I'm not going to talk about that, but I do want to talk about the casting process and the cast diversity. So I think that what happens a lot of the times with MTR shows is that not a lot of people of color or BIPOC people audition. And the reason behind that is because we know that the shows are predominantly white, or we know that the casting is going to lead to, like, it's going to go towards that direction. So the thing that I've noticed is that a lot of times, multiple times, I was like looking at the MTR and like their cast pictures and stuff and their breakdowns, and they're overwhelmingly white, or they have people that can check off the diversity mark but are white passing. So I know that I consider myself, or like people of color, like Latinx people consider me white passing, and I know that there's privilege from that. But I think that there's a lot of times that MTR has just cast people, and I obviously, like, there's always a talent trumps all, but I think that to just mark off that diversity check mark, people get cast for having a last name that is of color or indicates that you're diverse. So I just think that MTR can do a lot to incorporate and, I don't know, just encourage other people to audition. And I think a lot of that has to do with how you guys market yourselves or your shows, like the show process. I think there was a lot of stuff that I've been like researching and like seeing to improve on like how us as actors or artists can improve our casting and diversity. And I think that it starts with the mentality. I don't know who's like the head of like casting, or like if it's the director, AD, I don't know how that works. But I think that MTR should take into consideration people of color, Black people, etc., everyone, into roles that wouldn't be typically given to them. So I think that that's a main proponent. Again, I'm a very big fan of MTR. I just think that there's a lot of stuff that you guys can do to make it better. And if you guys ever need any like feedback or anything, I'm pretty sure I know a lot of people who can contribute to this conversation. I know I've had multiple conversations surrounding MTR's casting, but yeah, a lot of respect. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Rebecca. Love you. Very well said. We definitely acknowledge that has been our past, and we hope to try to reach out to organizations across campus and set a precedent to do that in the future for all shows, so that we can try to reach as much as a bigger and wider audition pool, and hopefully we can try to do better and implement things in our casting process. So thank you for that input. No one has their hand raised right now. Anyone want to speak?
I'll just unmute. Hi. I know this is like a talk back, like we have to talk to you, but I just had a question before I put my 2 cents in or let someone else talk, so I can gather my thoughts. I just want to say bravo on the statement. That was probably one of the best statements regarding recognizing and standing in solidarity with like the Black Lives Matter movement. So I thank you guys, or whoever, and like the collective thought of putting that statement together. But my question was for anyone on the board to answer, like how did you guys come to that conclusion that like this was an issue with MTR? Was this like something always that was like brewing, or is it because, with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, that you guys are like, this might be an issue? I'm just curious. Yeah.
Go for it, Stephen.
I'd say it's something a good majority of us all are very aware of. And the only reason that we had a meeting expressing like what our plan was with Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that. And what was expressed is that nobody felt the courage to stand up to the group and say something until now. It's just full disclosure, we've been aware of this problem and we haven't made enough change until now.
Yeah, and I want to chime in and say that thank you to Gia, who I know is somewhere in here, for speaking up at the SDA meeting, because that gave me a lot of courage, being a person of color who's applied to this board and like gotten on the board, to speak even though I know everyone individually, it's always scary to talk to a big group of white people. So yeah, Abby, I saw your little hand raised if you want to say
Yeah,
something.
I was bouncing off of Steven's point was that Tata started the conversation for us. Thanks, Tata. Gio gave us a reason to start that conversation. Thanks, Gio. But when it came down to it in that meeting, we all just started expressing things that, how do I say this? Like, it's going to be a big change for the board in a lot of different ways, in a lot of ways that I don't think that we expected when we started talking, but we realized that all of these little changes will make our board better and more inclusive. And this is the way that we all wanted to go anyways, but all of us were afraid to say anything because of the precedent, that just because this is MTR, and we were all intimidated by it, but we're it.
Go for it, Erica.
I also think something that we were all like thinking about but never said was the fact that like when you get on the board, the first thing people say to you is be careful. They warn you about the people. And we were sitting here being like, we don't want to be those people, and we want to change that and like get like, I know when I got on the board, obviously they're elitists, be careful. And we're different. We're a different board than it was 5 years ago and 4. So I think that's also one of the driving forces of why we knew this change needed to happen.
Yeah. Sam, did you have any questions that you want to follow up with that?
No, I'll let someone else have at it.
Cool. Gio is up next. My fave. Hello, I think you're muted, my friend.
Sorry, I'm at the lake. So I was like, let me not show my face. Yeah, thank you guys for the statement you put out. It really meant a lot because, like Tata said, speaking out is very scary, especially when you're trying to talk to your friends, because sometimes you don't always know how friends will reciprocate things, or if they'll make you feel like what you're saying sounds a little weird. So thank you for not making me feel like I'm crazy. I just wanted to say that, we all know that within the department itself, within SCA in particular, like musical theater, like shows that they put on are primarily directed by like Parmer and Kelly, and that there's an issue even in like main stage shows. So I think the part of the reason why I spoke out was because it's kind of disheartening when it's like you can't get in on the main stage show, and then you try and you're like, hey peers, let me like just be like chorus member number 3 in the back and like let me participate, and then like you get told no. And it's not just like Tata said, it's not just like once or twice, it's like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And then sometimes it's a weird feeling walking into a room and having to audition for people where you don't see anyone who looks like remotely like you. That's a little scary. But like I said, the rules you guys put in place and the action steps, they really meant a lot. And I think it's going to open up a bunch of really cool opportunities for the school, not just for next year, but for like years to come when, our like siblings go to school, or like family members. Like I think it's going to really create good change for the program. So thank you.
Thanks, Gio. And yeah, I mean, our action steps are just preliminary things. And if any of you guys have any suggestions for our potential restructuring or for board applications and how to make things better, because I think that we're so used to the system that was put in place prior to all of us being on the board that it's hard to like know exactly what everyone wants to hear or see or participate in. So if anyone has any suggestions, this is also the time to spew them out. But currently no one has their hands raised. So hello people, if you want to, oh, Stella, yes, hello.
Hello, I forgot that my mute was on, so I had to unmute myself. But, like everyone said, thank you so much for doing this. I know that, it really you know, like for the whole SDA community, like we're all like very happy that like you as a very influential organization are having this. And like I read through all of your, you know, your new agenda. It's great. And it's, you know, it's really good to see. So thank you so much again. You know, I don't know all of you, a lot of you are new members, but for those of you I know, I'm a junior, so I know some of you, worked with some of you, and you know, as individuals, like you're the nicest people, you are. But going back to the kind of elitist reputation that MTR has, I think part of that goes to socioeconomic class, and that's something that I've had a lot of discussions with people in SDA. I think a lot of us feel, or certainly I feel, social pressure from MTR because it's like, it has a reputation of like having board members and cast members who are of like a pretty high socioeconomic class. And of course that doesn't apply to everyone, but that's just kind of the longstanding reputation and what people see. And so I would say like that's a big contributor to that reputation. And I really loved that you guys said you were going to eliminate the cast dues and everything, because like that was a big problem with it too. And so yeah, and I think that like that's part of why maybe some people like feel social pressure from this group, because, you know, I mean, I'm a first generation college student. I'm Latina, but I'm very much white passing, so it's not even necessarily about that. But, you know, I think those of us who didn't grow up super privileged, you know, kind of like feel sometimes like intimidated by this group because of that. And that also goes back to what you were saying about the resume, because, you know, like I went to a high school with like not that great of programming, and I couldn't afford to do like all these intensives, and that speaks to the profession of musical theater itself. Like a lot of it comes from privilege, like the voice training, the dance training, the acting training, everything. And of course we're privileged all to go to USC at all, but I think that that's something that connects to all of it. And I really love that you guys are taking steps to address that, but that's just the main thing I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking, Stella. And yes, the whole socioeconomic status of MT as a whole is so fucked, and MTR totally perpetuated that with the resume thing and the cast dues, and we're actively trying to change that. So I'm glad that you recognize that, and thank you for sharing. I hope we can change the reputation of this board to be better than that in the future. Yum.
Hey, so I have to go in a minute, but just going off of what Stella was just saying, an idea that could possibly help like change the whole elitist thing. One thing is that like for a lot of people, doing shows just isn't necessarily an option if they have to like be working and doing things like that. And I think that you guys have a lot of power as a board to be offering more opportunities that are beyond just being in a show. Like for example, you guys had that workshop with Carrie St. Louis, and like there was a lot of diversity there, and like that is like something that I think there was more diversity in that workshop than there was in like probably any of the shows that I've seen MTR do. And so it's just like offering opportunities like that where people can come and still learn and still, you know, interact with your organization, all the wonderful things you do, without being constrained by like time or money or whatever the limit is for that reason. And then also just one thing that I really liked with your plans going forward is the idea of having directors and people on your show teams that aren't necessarily from your board, because like, I mean, looking at your board, you know, you have 3 people who like would be a director of color or a music director or choreographer or whatever. And so I think that initiative and idea is really great. And that is all I have to say off the top of my head. So thank you guys.
Well, thanks, Yum. Yes, that is a great idea. I think the past MTRs tried to do that, but I think having that as a precedent and having one or multiple things a semester that aren't just shows is definitely a great solution to try and involve people, because being in a show is a commitment. Thank you, Yum. No one has their hands raised. If anyone wants to chime in, go for it. Cool. This is really fun. This is me talking now.
While
People raising their hands. Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Go for it. Go for it,
You have something to say, Sam?
Oh no, you go, Cole, for a hot second. Go for it.
Oh, okay. No. I was just feeling the time. I feel like the board, like, that's something to be completely transparent with everyone. Like, the perception that to be with MTR, you have to be of a certain socioeconomic status. That's something that's been, I'm sure, in the back of many of our minds, but that's not actually been said. And I think we should all really reflect on that and think where that comes from and how do you like try to change that. Just because that's not something that's openly been discussed. So just marinate on that. Thanks, Stella, for bringing it up.
Go for it, Sam.
Okay. A lot of people are commenting on like the elitist like status of like the organization and like how they feel like MTR is very elitist status. I never felt when I first walked in for auditioning for like Spelling Bee, I never felt this like elitist attitude from the group. I did feel, however, a sort of like racial bias towards my counterparts in the audition room who were lighter skinned, who were white, and I feel like that's one major issue of not just like diverse, making the organization more diverse. I feel like one thing MTR needs to also recognize is for a young person of color, for predominantly like a freshman coming into USC, seeing your auditioning table, walking in for like an MTR audition and seeing the audition table, and no one you see at that audition table reflects back who you are or looks like you, or you can look at someone's eyes and be like, we've kind of walked the same walk of life. So it was hard for me walking into that audition table and not see anyone who reflected me back at the table and find comfort in that person. So I think one thing that MTR can do, of course, adding more people of color and making diverse and making the people in the group more diverse, but also I having the struggle with my acapella group because they like to label, I'm not going to say the acapella group, but they want to label like we're a very diverse acapella group. And I'm like, yes, we are. Culturally, like people, we are diverse, but just because you have one person of color, one Black woman, one Indian girl in our acapella group doesn't technically, really, in essence, make us a diverse group. Because if you want to really make the group diverse, introduce more works from people of color, have let's arrange a song by a Black artist, let's arrange songs by a Latino artist. A lot of our songs that I have at least personally learned from our only semester being in the group was songs predominantly made by white artists. So I feel like that's another thing MTR can really look into, is I think those two things go hand in hand. If people can recognize that there is someone that is going to be there for them on the MTR board, whether that be like music directing or directing, like a person of color on the table, so they feel welcomed or they feel some type of sense of like that they're grounded in a sense that they see someone that reflects who they are. And I know a lot of other groups, I know there's like one group on campus, I don't know what their name is, that like focuses on doing works by people of color. I forgot their name. Don't roast me.
Modern Minority.
That one. I feel like if MTR begins and starts doing more pieces of theater that like really resemble like people of the African American experience, people like I don't know, just people of color playwrights, I feel like would make such a huge difference.
Yeah, thank you so much. You bring up a very good point, where diversity in a group does not mean that people of color feel included. I recently listened to a podcast that I shared with the board, but I'll share with you guys too, called The Diversity Gap, that talks about equity, and equity is broken up into 3 parts, and it's talking about not only diversity, but also inclusion and belonging, and making that space welcoming, and also feel like creating an environment where that can continue to happen. And putting on productions and shows that are written by BIPOCs or anything of that nature is definitely important, because as you said, like if we're going to keep putting on white theater makers, yes, Nick linked the the podcast and the comments. Everyone should listen to it. If we keep perpetuating that and perpetuating white playwrights and musical theater artists, then it's not going to make it as inclusive. So yeah, great point. Really, really great point.
And I'll also just speak on, since our upcoming, whenever it'll happen, production of Hair, I just want to stress that from the beginning of me like pitching to direct the show, is my focus is on decentering my whiteness in working on the production, and I'm super committed for the table. I want my assistant director to be a woman of color. I want as many people on the team as possible to come from a variety of backgrounds, because this is a show that deals with so much activism and political issues, and I cannot speak on any of those stories myself, and that's really important. And especially with the show that's like about 1968, and the fact that now everything happening now is so reflective and people keep calling back to that time, I think it's so important to have a diverse team, people of color, and specifically Black artists on the team for the show to be successful. So that will be in good hands going forward.
Thank you, Nick. No one has their hands raised. Yes, no one yet. If anyone has any thoughts, suggestions, things to share, you can speak forth if you want. Also, board members, if there's anything that you want to chime in on from our conversations, from our last conversation about things that we plan on implementing, or like specific things you guys think we need help with, or asking people who are here. Feel free also.
I kind of just going even back to like what Stella was saying, and like I'm really happy that you said that, because even like as a board member, I have felt that all the time, being a board member, and I've never actually shared it with the board, but like coming from a low income family, like going on to this, like you feel it. And so I just want to like say like thank you for saying that, and it's something that I think we should really be thinking about. Yeah.
Cool. I see a hand raised. Ren Yi, you can speak.
Hi guys, my name's Ren. I know a lot of you guys from, I was in Avenue Q last year. I see a lot of, fellow participants of that. I was asked to come here. I only have like 20 minutes I can stay on, but I was asked to come here by some people just like asking about my experience within Avenue Q. And I guess I don't necessarily know what exactly has come out of this conversation as of far. But in my experience within an MTR, I've had a really good experience with a lot of the individuals. But I guess I have questions regarding content and or like the selection of pieces, especially within the one that I particularly participated in. Going into a show like Avenue Q, I know a lot of people have kind of are familiar with the plot and or have been a part of it, but particularly the character I played was a very racially charged, derogatory individual, in particular like towards the Asian American community. And it's a very interesting role to play, especially when you've kind of taken this up and like you had like the chance to say yes or no to a certain part. My experience within MTR has been amazing. Like the people that I've met, like Austin, Steven, like Beth, like you guys are absolutely amazing. And like I loved the direction. But I remember there have been certain times where not necessarily there was a, no harm was meant in some of the words that were said. But I feel like in some regards, there was almost like this elitist, like in the ways of like how the specific plot was driven and like how characters were like developed. I feel like there was a specific the hierarchy when it came to like white characters versus the people of color within that certain show. And I wonder what kind of steps it kind of took into like, oh, how did we pick this show in a sense. I remember feeling very like, I never really like stood up for myself in that role. It is a Japanese American character that I played, but I'm Chinese. And it was such a, like, I could have said no to the part and stuff like that. And I know that there was a certain point where like, I'm not crying. I have really bad allergies, by the way. I have 4 cats right now. It is bad. But there were times when I remember specifically some ignorant comments were thrown around about my character. And even though that character doesn't represent me, it was a very heavy-handed character to play because it represented my cultural background, not being Japanese, but being Asian American. I guess, I don't know why I decided to say something about it now, but it felt like something that was right to say. I remember some parts in particular that kind of drove me, like, I still remember them to today. And there was nobody was intentionally trying to be racist, you know, but the show in general happens to be racist. There is a song in there called Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. And it's in the time frame that the show was created, I feel like it was very like, oh, Sesame Street, like, but it's bad. And it was very like groundbreaking at that time, but I wonder whether or not that was a culturally appropriate show for the time. So yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. I've kind of found peace within doing that. I did this my freshman year, and I had a lot of doubts coming out and saying all this stuff, but I think that throughout the time that I've been at USC, I've kind of found peace within MTR. I still love MTR. MTR is amazing. Like, what you guys are doing is like super cool. And y'all, like, despite, like, there wasn't an intent to be bad. And you guys aren't bad, but like, I love you guys still. I think you guys are great. It was just one experience that I had. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm glad that you said something, and always feel like you can share more if you want to ever speak on it again, because I think you bring up a good point about intent versus impact that's been spoken about a lot during this time. And oftentimes, even though there isn't the intent, the impact is still negative. And it's unfortunate that, and hopefully we'll strive in the future to continue to select shows that, or to push to select shows that do not perpetuate any negative stereotypes and I think we're going to try to implement ways so that we can try to work against any implicit biases or any sorts of comments of that sort. And you did bring up a question about how we pick shows, and that's just all going to be hopefully in the process of changing. But for those of you who don't know, our board currently, and hopefully will change with conversations, but currently it's an internal situation where the board members all bring up shows that we think would work. And then we kind of have like a big list, and then we narrow it down. And it's very internal. There's no outside input, but that's really problematic because, as you can see, it's not the most diverse of boards. And sometimes us POCs feel uncomfortable bringing up things if you don't feel comfortable with the show. So hopefully that internal situation that's happened is going to change, and hopefully a situation like that where a show that portrays someone in any group in a negative light doesn't happen again on our group. Yeah, so thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing, and you were heard and seen. Jennifer.
Hi, I'm not gonna turn my camera on because I look ugly right now. But hi, my name is Jennifer. I just finished my freshman year, so I'm going to be a sophomore at USC. I auditioned for Dogfight. Don't remember why I didn't audition for Spelling Bee, but I'm a Latina. I'm slightly white passing. I don't really know where I sit on that. Trying to figure that out. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I auditioned for Dogfight, and this became very a thought in my mind while I was listening to this conversation when Gio, I think, mentioned like it's scary to walk into a room and then not see anybody who looks like you in there. And I hadn't ever really thought about it like that until I walked into the room to audition for Dogfight. I was nervous because I'd never auditioned for the group, and I already knew that there was a reputation that there was like elitism and you only get in if you know somebody. So knowing absolutely nobody in the group, I was really scared. And then when I walked in and saw a table of pretty much just only white people, I was like, okay, this is going to be really hard, you know? I did the audition, I sang my song, and I don't remember who it was, honestly. I just remember when I finished, they were like, oh, that was great. Why did you choose that song? And I mean, probably they asked that to everybody, you know, but at that moment, they kind of like looked at each other like, is this bitch for real? And then kind of looked back at me, and I felt like there was like this kind of twinge of like, who are you? Why are you here auditioning for us? Like, how dare you? So it felt very like, not charged, but there was like this sense that I wasn't supposed to be there and that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then I received an email saying that I wasn't like, you know, offered a role, which is, you know, fine because that happens. But when things like that happen like very often, it becomes a problem. And if people don't feel comfortable in the audition room to begin with because of who is there, then it makes it less likely for them to even like come back, first of all, and second of all, do a good job in the audition room. So it creates like this disbalance. Compared, like when white actors walk in, they feel completely comfortable and they do their audition and they're out of there, you know. But when someone like me walks in there and I don't see myself reflected back, it's nerve-wracking, and it makes it much less likely for me and other actors of color to do a good job, you know. And yeah, the reputation of elitism has like basically been the biggest thing that I've heard out of any ISP, basically. Like, not just like I thought I was crazy when I saw the cast and how they were like predominantly white, but I'm glad that someone finally brought it up, you know, because looking at the casts and then kind of looking back at my audition, I was like, okay, this is definitely a problem and I'm not crazy, you know. But elitism is definitely something that has always been brought up, and like, oh, be careful when you audition for them, you know, because they ask for cast dues and they only accept you if you know somebody. So I'm really glad that this statement came out, because I was also considering not auditioning for hair because I was like, okay, they're just going to cast white people and then black people when they need them, you know. So I was like, I'm not going to. And then the next day the statement came out, so I was like, okay, so maybe so I'll put myself out there, and I'm really glad that this conversation is happening because of that. So yeah, that's basically my big ramble. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and you are so heard and so seen. I'm so sorry that experience happened to you, and that I know that the intent versus impact thing is super pivotal and important, and I think we need to really hyper think about how we do auditions, because that's something that I don't think any of us even thought about. To be completely transparent about how auditions work, oftentimes we'll have like unspoken looks to try and like narrow down if we want to hear any more vocally or any more like have another song in your book. And I think that even the slightest thing, as you said, that probably wasn't intended to be like that came out that way. And I'm so sorry that happened and that made you feel like that. And hopefully we will we'll further analyze and figure out how to do auditions better so that A, you don't feel like you're auditioning for people who don't look like you or you don't feel comfortable, but B, that all of the interactions and experiences that you feel don't make you feel like that. So thank you for saying that. Really important. Nick Kirstens has his hand up.
Hey guys. So I've just been listening and I just hear a lot of people talk about how they've been like scared to come forward and talk. And I was wondering if you guys had thought about implementing some sort of like anonymous complaint system so that way they can still like voice their concerns without worrying about repercussions. Because it sounds to me like a lot of people have these thoughts and they're too scared to voice it because of like not being cast or pissing somebody off. So I was just wondering if you, because I know like a lot of other sensitive cases, like, but like, I know, like sexual assault, for example, they tend to protect the people who speak out. So I was wondering if you guys were thinking about implementing some sort of system similar.
That is a great idea. I think prior to me suggesting we have this Zoom, we were thinking about having a different form, but I think that that's a great idea. Thank you for saying that. Stephen, I see you're trying to say.
I can actually speak on that. So we have a process in place. So after every show, we try to get everyone involved with the show, all the designers, all the actors, all the directors, to give feedback on what went well with the show, what went wrong with the show, things that we could have seen. I think it's a really great idea to actually extend that out to the audience of people, just like kind of gauge kind of like how the community feels about the show, if people felt like it did a service to themselves or something like that. But I think that's a great idea.
When you ask them, do you ask them in person, like to face?
No, it's all anonymous online through Google Forms.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a great idea. And I think the only thing that I think we had feared about in general, like for this forum, if it were not in person or speaking, was like us not interpreting anything, not interpreting what someone writes, right? You know, like miscommunication in that sense. But I think that that's still a really great idea, just in case people don't feel safe. And hopefully we can work towards making people feel like they can share, but that's also a wonderful, wonderful idea. Thank you. Ren.
I just like to second that's a really good idea of like anonymous, if that was already in place. I don't necessarily remember doing one for when I was in there. I think to just go off of Jennifer's thoughts again, I think that in her experience it was very different, whereas like it was like, oh, I'm in this room but I'm the person of color, therefore like I have no space for it. To be honest, like when I went into my audition, I remember very specifically, like I'm a very big fan of Avenue Q. Like it is one of my favorite, like it was one of my favorite shows, like back prior to doing this. So I knew of the characters and stuff like that. But I remember walking into the room and not necessarily auditioning for the character that I was auditioning for. Obviously, as an Asian American, I was very conscious about this specific role, and which is why I consciously didn't apply or like audition for the role in general. But I remember going in and immediately like auditioning with a different intent in mind, and then immediately it felt like there wasn't necessarily a just like as Jennifer said, it was like oh, that's great. Could we have you sing this song instead? And it was the one that I don't want to say that I was kind of dreading to hear, but it was definitely like okay, all right, they want me to do this part. And that's all that they were gonna look at me for. And obviously with a character that is specifically race casted, the question is whether or not you should cast that person, or like there's like a typecasting that comes with like a specific race within any show. So once you're a person of color going into a type of show that is specifically like coded for a certain race, you are constantly like, oh, I'm pigeonholed into that one certain character. I'm not necessarily sure how to fix that, because like obviously you don't want to cast like a different person of like a different race and like something else that should be correctly represented. But again, allergies. But it's something that I think that I never really thought of until like Jennifer put it up. But I do remember like a very big part of like going into it was like feeling pigeonholed into that. yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think hopefully we can attempt to reach a wider range of people to audition and make people feel comfortable so that they can audition, so we can have more people from different walks of life, different races, different ethnicities, different anything, feel comfortable coming to audition for us. So that way, hopefully, it doesn't leave you to only be put into that role. And I'm sorry that that's how you felt, but that is so that intent versus impact, and it's not okay. And yeah, I think we're gonna try to work our best in figuring out and like strategically planning how to do color conscious casting so we can make sure everyone has the best opportunity that you can have. We're very committed to that. Yeah. And no one else has their hand raised.
I had a question about your promise of like color conscious casting. Like, what is the premise behind like being color conscious? You know, because Ren brought up a good point how when she was auditioning and she was only looked at for the predominantly Asian American role, you know, like I'm just curious, like how are you willing to implement more color conscious casting? Like, are African American people or Black people supposed to only are only going to be casted in roles that are predominantly for Black actors and actresses, or will they be allowed to play predominantly people who were casted as white actors and actresses? I'm just a little confused on that.
Yeah, Abby, did you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I think the first thing, Sam, great question. And it is also the question that like the entire theater community is investigating right now together. So I hope that the board is as committed and interested in keeping current with the color conscious conversation as it develops so that we can all learn together. But the important thing about color conscious casting, from what I have learned and read, is it's trying to get rid of color blind casting, because that's trying to negate any experience that comes with a certain race or ethnicity or a skin color, and we don't want to take part in that. But rather, we want to invite the identities of the actors into the roles in ways that don't negate who they are, so that they don't have to subtract any of themselves in creating a character. So if and this is where it becomes Abby speaking, if characters are coded a certain way, we should honor the coding of that. But other than that, we should be looking for opportunities to bring to students so that we can be a additive part of their education while at USC and not be a subtractive or diminutive part of their education.
Yeah, go for it, Nick.
And I'll also say, as a concrete example, like for Hair, I think that show, historically, there are certain characters that have been always played by white actors and certain characters that are the parts for Black people, like Hud and Dion. But something that I am really interested in is characters like Claude and Sheila and stuff, having those be actors of color. And like what Abby said, like that wasn't like race issues weren't specifically written within those characters, but I'm really interested in, if a person of color plays those parts, how do those experiences that they've had, how does that influence the character and their arc in the show and the way that character is seen within the context of the show with this new lens, and how can that perhaps help us to see the story of the show in a new and a different way that hasn't been done before, while like honoring those people's experiences.
Yeah, and that was a great question. Very well said. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to make this effort to do that for every single show in the future, because it's not cool that we were super white before, and we're not going to try to be so white anymore. And that's my song. No one else has their hand raised, so that's why I did a song. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca, for clapping. That's so nice. Yeah, anyone have any other questions, comments, concerns? There's not a lot of us on here, so if no one has any other questions, I'll give us a few more buffer moments. Yes, speak, people, speak.
I just want to say that at least me, I don't have to say this for the rest of the board, but I'd really like to be a person that if you ever feel uncomfortable or feel like something in the board makes you uncomfortable, no matter your race, sexual identity, whatever about something that happened, I'd like to just say that I'm a person that you can come up to and express that frustration with, and I promise to take it back to the board and spearhead a conversation about it.
Oh yeah, me as well, fully committed to that. I think this has really helped a lot of us, at least me, speaking for myself, find our voice and feel confident to be angry and be okay with being angry at the way things have been. And I would like to say that, again, calling out Gio, saying thank you again for giving me the confidence to say something and to really come in with a game plan and hopefully push for change. Yes, but I second that, what Abby said. If you guys want to talk to me, I'm here. I'm just a person. I'm just like you. Erica, did you have something to say?
I just have a question for like the people not on the board here. That like if you like people that have applied to the board before or have seen like I guess what the board asks in applying, like I know where like that's one of our action steps to adjust board applications, but is there anything that like you guys specifically have to say that you've experienced with the application, the process, that like you would like to see changed, or you think that we could explore a different way? Because I know like we have ideas, but I think ideas from not us are also probably, if not more important than our own. So like if you have applied to the board, if you haven't, or just have heard about it, like specific things that you think need to be changed in the way that it happens.
Yeah, totally. Zoya has her hand raised. I don't know if it's in relation to this or prior, but go for it regardless.
So something that it like is kind of related to the application process. So something that I don't really talk about that often is the fact that, and it's super personal, there's no Indian people in like anything, and I think I can count the number of Indian people in School of Dramatic Arts on like one hand. And it's comforting seeing people of color in spaces because it makes me feel a little bit better about like feeling more welcome, but like I feel like there's a lack of Indian people in the arts and everything, and I thought that would have been taken into account a little bit more when I applied. And I don't mean I should have gotten on the board just because I'm Indian. That's a little ridiculous. But it just feels a little discouraging after a while. I don't know what my point was. I just want to put that out there. Thanks.
Girl, you are heard. I feel you so much on that point. I mean, I literally personally experienced that. I really felt that and like felt like I was put onto the board because I am a Latinx community. And then I felt like I did nothing with it and I didn't know what to do about that. But yeah, I think it's about hopefully like taking into account the perspectives that need to be shared. And like even in the process, when you see two people who like have the same situation, like think about the white person versus the person of color and like why you're choosing the white person over the person of color. And if they have the same exact assets, what does that mean? And how can we give an opportunity to someone? So yeah, that's a good point. And I think it's really hard, but hopefully we can try to do our best to keep providing opportunities and try to, I think, fight against the implicit biases that people have. And I think hopefully after this big time of reflection that we're all in, we can try to navigate those and confront them head on and, you know, work against them. But thank you, Zoya, for saying that. Yeah, but if anyone else has any answers kind of to what Erica said, we are I think the board apps is the place that we're kind of like the fuzziest on as a group. We're kind of like, how do we make this better? Because like if we get rid of the resume thing, it's like, how do we, and it's like, and I kind of talked about this in our personal meeting of like with the board, like kind of like the passion and the willing to learn and like the commitment and like seeing their commitment and maybe not in like other things. And it's hard to like navigate what to bring into it, but making that maybe more of a factor than just like what's on your resume or like what have you done, because some people haven't had those opportunities. But yeah, if anyone else has any other suggestions on like requirements for board apps or of that nature, if it doesn't come up to you now and like if you don't have an idea now, because this is a hard question, feel free to like email us or like personally come to me or anyone, email the USCMTR at Gmail account, because I think that we're really trying to take in things. Yes, that's my spiel. No one has their hands raised, which is totally fine. Anyone on the board or anyone else have anything else to say? Because I know we are a small group, so, and we've all spoken.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for speaking out today. I mean, as the president of this board and as a woman of color, it's very encouraging to hear like what everyone's got to say. And like, I personally relate so much to everything that all of you have said, because I remember when I applied for the board, I mean, I was lucky enough to get on the first time I applied, but like, I remember walking into that interview room and like, everyone was just like sitting in a line, like the whole board, and like, what, like 80-90% were white, and they were all my friends, but like still you feel intimidated. And like, I just want to say that I personally relate to that, and I hear everything you've said. And I think like moving forward actively, like in the audition room, the like board application process, like especially in the audition room, having representation within the directors or whoever's in the room, I think that's so important, and I really appreciate everyone who's like spoken up in that. Yeah, and I love you all so much, and hopefully MTR is going to be able to push for change and change for the better.
Woo! Thank you guys for doing this. This is really good. This is a really good talk. Also, you guys look so sad. Like, this is like a issue with like everything, like musical theater in general, USC. Like, have you seen how like, like, you know, it's like I don't think anyone here has like the answer to racism, like you know. But I think one of the first steps on tackling racism is recognizing the issue. So I think you guys are taking the necessary steps to be more inclusive and all that jazz. So thank you guys for this. This is a really good.
Thank you for helping us take those steps.
Yes, all of you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
But seriously, if you guys have any questions or suggestions, or like tell your friends who weren't here, like to come email us or anything, because I know that y'all go to your group chats, and same, I go to my group chats and like, help me, give me ideas. So
another thing is that like the USC MTR email address is like the scariest thing ever. I agree with that. So like, if you don't want to send an email, like don't, just text us.
yeah, or just find me on Instagram or something, or even Instagram DM the Instagram if you don't want to find one of us individually.
We will also make sure that anonymous option for people who want to voice things anonymously becomes an option. We'll work on that.
Gio has a hand raised. Hold on, people. We're not over. Gio.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's so. I was telling Abby this morning that, like, not just with you guys, but like everything that's going on around the world and all these new rules that are being enacted. It's really crazy because you're just used to people kind of like talking and promising, and then nothing really changing. So for like all of these new like laws and rules and regulations to be put into place now, it's kind of just like breathtaking. Like, whoa, like so much support, you know, like from from organizations and the government and different places where it's like popping up. So I just want to say that thank you for like being a part of that, and to like really trying to like push forward, because I know it's like, it's also scary to like, you know, stand up and say like I've been an issue or I've been a part of the problem. So thank you guys for doing that.
Thanks, Gio, and thank you for giving a lot of us courage to speak again. You're the best. Yeah. Cool. Oh, Erica?
Also, like, everything everyone has said today was like formulated so nice, and like, if you're like texting, if someone's like sending in a thing, like, you don't have to be nice to us. Like, we have been perpetuating the problem. Like, you don't have to be nice to us. Like, don't feel like you need to like formulate it nicely. Like, your feelings are so valid and need to be heard. And like your suggestions and everything. So like, don't be nice to us. Like, you do not need to with your like comments and stuff. Like, yeah.
Yes, Erica. We are just people. I think that's this weird stigma about MTR that I like tried to dismantle with my friends. I'm like, we're literally all just individuals.
We're students.
We're students. We don't have any actual power, but it feels like that because of the system and the system that we've been perpetuating, and we're going to try to change it so that you guys can have voices and everyone can have voices, because that's what matters. Yes. So yeah. Cool. I think it's over. It's been nice seeing your faces, even though some of you guys are hidden. But it's been nice seeing and hearing you guys. And yeah, thank you for coming. And hopefully we'll be in constant communication and updating you guys with more of our plans. Yeah.
Right on.
Woo! Thank you. Okay, you can go now. I don't know what I'm doing.
I think yeah, it's a great, the house